I never thought a snowblower would be the thing that finally made me leave a neighborhood I'd lived in for 8 years. But here we are. My name is Connor Mitchell, and I've been living in the Pine Ridge Estates subdivision in Erie, Pennsylvania since 2017. It's one of those cookie-cutter neighborhoods where every house looks vaguely similar. The lawns are all maintained to within an inch of their lives, and the HOA rules dictate everything from what color you can paint your mailbox to how many garden gnomes constitute a violation. When I first moved in, I thought the HOA was just a minor annoyance, something I could ignore as long as I kept my grass trimmed and didn't park my truck on the street overnight. Boy, was I wrong. The trouble started in December 2024, right after the first major snowstorm of the season. Erie gets hammered with lake-effect snow every winter, sometimes upwards of 100 inches over the course of the season. Growing up here, you learn quickly that having good snow removal equipment isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. That's why I'd invested in a commercial-grade Arian snowblower 3 years ago, the kind with the oversized auger that can chew through 2 feet of snow like it's nothing. Cost me nearly $3,000, but it was worth every penny. I also owned something even more valuable to the neighborhood, though I didn't realize it at the time. See, I run a landscaping business, Mitchell's Lawn and Garden Services, and part of that business involves snow removal in the winter. I have a 2018 Ford F350 with a commercial plow setup that I use for clearing driveways and parking lots. It's a beast of a machine, and it's my livelihood during the winter months when the landscaping work dries up. The morning after that first big storm dropped 18 inches on us overnight, I was up at 4 in the morning, clearing my own driveway with the snowblower before heading out to take care of my commercial clients. The sun wasn't even up yet, and the snow was still falling lightly, those tiny crystals that sparkle under streetlights. I just finished my driveway and was about to load the snowblower back into my garage when I saw her marching across the street toward me. Patricia Danvers, the HOA president. She was bundled up in a designer parka that probably cost more than my snowblower, her highlighted blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, and she had that look on her face. You know the one. The look that says she's about to make your life difficult and she's going to enjoy every second of it. "Excuse me, Connor," she called out, her voice cutting through the quiet morning air. "I need to speak with you." I killed the engine on the snowblower and pulled off my gloves. "Morning, Patricia. What can I do for you?" "I've been watching you out here with that snowblower," she said, getting right to the point. "And I have to say, I think it's incredibly selfish of you to keep that equipment to yourself when the entire neighborhood could benefit from it." I blinked at her, not sure I'd heard correctly. "I'm sorry. What?" "The snowblower," she said, gesturing at my Arians like it was community property. "The HOA has been discussing our snow removal situation, and we feel that residents with specialized equipment should make it available to other homeowners who aren't as fortunate." "Patricia, this is a $3,000 piece of equipment that I bought with my own money. I use it for my business. Be that as it may, we're a community here at Pine Ridge Estates. Community means sharing resources for the common good." She pulled out her phone and started tapping at the screen. "I'm prepared to add this to the next board meeting agenda. We'll be proposing an amendment to the HOA bylaws requiring homeowners with snow removal equipment to make it available to neighbors upon request." I felt my jaw clench. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Mrs. Henderson, 3 doors down, is elderly and can barely shovel her walk. The Kramers both work night shifts and don't have time to clear their driveway before they need to leave for work. And the Johnsons just had a baby, so Mark Johnson certainly doesn't need the stress of snow removal on top of everything else. Then they can hire a snow removal service, I said, or buy their own snowblowers. That's what normal people do. Patricia's eyes narrowed. There's no need to be hostile, Connor. I'm simply trying to facilitate a more cooperative environment in our neighborhood. Now, Mrs. Henderson needs her driveway cleared this morning. I told her you'd be happy to help. You told her what? I told her you'd be by within the hour to clear her driveway. It's the neighborly thing to do. I stared at her in disbelief. Patricia, I have paying customers waiting for me. I run a business. I can't just drop everything to plow people's driveways for free. No one said anything about doing it for free, Patricia said smoothly. I'm sure Mrs. Henderson would be happy to pay you a reasonable fee. Though of course, since you live in the neighborhood and benefit from all the amenities our HOA fees provide, I would expect you to offer a significant discount to fellow residents. I already offer a neighbor discount, I said. 20% off my normal rate. Mrs. Henderson knows that. She has my number. If she wanted to hire me, she could have called. Well, she shouldn't have to hire you, Patricia snapped, her facade of pleasantness cracking. You have the equipment right here. It would take you 15 minutes. 15 minutes I don't have. I've got 6 commercial properties to clear before their business is open, and then another dozen residential clients after that. I'm going to be working until dark as it is. Patricia's face flushed red, visible even in the dim pre-dawn light. I see. So your paying customers are more important than your neighbors. My paying customers are how I pay my mortgage, I shot back. Look, if Mrs. Henderson needs help and can't afford to hire someone, I'd be happy to clear her driveway when I get home tonight, no charge. But I'm not going to let you voluntold me into being the neighborhood snow removal service. This conversation isn't over, Patricia said coldly. The board will be discussing this situation, and I strongly suggest you reconsider your position before we're forced to take official action. She turned on her heel and marched back across the street to her house, leaving me standing there in the pre-dawn darkness, wondering what the hell had just happened. I should have known it was only the beginning. Over the next few days, things escalated quickly. Patricia sent out an email to the entire neighborhood through the HOA mailing list, titled Community Spirit and Shared Resources. In it, she outlined her vision for a more cooperative neighborhood, where residents with specialized equipment would make it available to others. She specifically mentioned snowblowers, lawn mowers, and power tools. She didn't mention me by name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. The responses were mixed. Some people thought it was a great idea, particularly those who didn't own their own snow removal equipment. Others thought Patricia was overstepping. One resident, Mike Torres, sent a reply all email asking if Patricia would be sharing her luxury SUV with neighbors who drove older vehicles. That email thread got heated fast. Then came the first official HOA notice, delivered to my mailbox 3 days after my conversation with Patricia. It was a formal letter on HOA letterhead, signed by Patricia and the other 2 board members, stating that I was in violation of HOA Bylaws Section 7.3, Community Standards and Neighborly Conduct. According to their interpretation, my refusal to assist Mrs. Henderson constituted behavior detrimental to the community spirit. I read the letter 3 times, getting angrier with each pass. Section 7.3 was one of those vague catch-all clauses that HOAs love to include so they can justify pretty much anything they want. It talked about maintaining harmonious relationships and contributing to the overall welfare of the community. Nowhere did it say anything about being required to share personal property. I immediately called my attorney, a guy named Robert Chen who'd helped me set up my business LLC a few years back. After I explained the situation, he was quiet for a moment. "Connor, I'm going to be straight with you," he said. "Could you fight this?" "Probably. The bylaw they're citing is extremely vague, and I seriously doubt any judge would uphold a requirement that you share your personal business equipment with neighbors. But here's the thing. Fighting an HOA is expensive and time-consuming. Even if you win, you lose, because you've spent months and thousands of dollars in legal fees. So what do I do? You have a few options. 1, you ignore them and see if they actually follow through with enforcement. 2, you comply under protest and keep detailed records in case you want to sue later. 3, you move. Move? I've been here 8 years. My business is established here. All my commercial clients are in this area. I get it. But sometimes the cost of staying isn't worth it. HOAs have a lot of power, and when you get a board president who wants to make your life hell, they can be very creative about it. Just think about it. I thanked him and hung up, feeling frustrated and trapped. Moving seemed extreme. This was my home. I'd worked hard to build my business in Erie. I knew the area, had relationships with suppliers and clients, and had finally gotten to the point where I was making a decent living. Starting over somewhere else would be a massive setback, but Patricia wasn't done. The next snowstorm hit 4 days later, another 15 inches overnight. I followed my same routine. Up at 4 in the morning, clear my own driveway, then head out to handle my commercial clients. I just finished loading the snowblower into my truck when Patricia appeared again, this time with 2 other women I recognized as HOA board members. "Connor, we need to talk," Patricia said. "I'm working, Patricia. I don't have time for this." "Make time," she snapped. "The board has voted and we're implementing an emergency measure. As of now, any resident with snow removal equipment is required to assist elderly or disabled residents before engaging in commercial activities." I stared at her. "You can't do that." "We absolutely can. It's an emergency measure for public safety." "Mrs. Henderson still hasn't had her driveway cleared from the last storm." "That's because she hasn't called anyone to clear it," I said. "I left my card in her mailbox. My rates are completely reasonable." "She shouldn't have to pay," one of the other women chimed in. "I thought her name was Susan." "We're neighbors. Neighbors help each other." "Neighbors ask each other for help," I countered. "They don't demand it, and Mrs. Henderson hasn't asked me for anything. You're the one making demands." "We're not asking anymore," Patricia said. "We're telling you, clear Mrs. Henderson's driveway right now, or we'll begin fining you $100 per day for every day you're in violation of the emergency measure." "You're insane," I said flatly. "You can't fine me for not doing unpaid labor." "Watch us," Patricia said. "The emergency measure is in effect immediately. You have until noon to clear Mrs. Henderson's driveway." They walked away before I could respond. I sat in my truck for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm down. Then I did something I probably should have done earlier. I drove to Mrs. Henderson's house. She answered the door in her bathrobe, looking surprised to see me. "Connor, what are you doing here so early?" "Mrs. Henderson, I'm sorry to bother you," I said. "But Patricia Danvers has been telling me that you need your driveway cleared and that you can't afford to hire anyone." "Is that true?" Mrs. Henderson's face flushed. "What? No, that's not true at all. I have a nephew who comes by with his truck. He cleared my driveway yesterday afternoon. And even if I needed help, I have your card. I would have called you." "So Patricia never talked to you about this?" "She mentioned something about community sharing a few days ago, but I told her I had it handled." "Connor, what's going on?" I explained the situation as briefly as I could. By the end, Mrs. Henderson looked furious. "That woman," she said. "She's using me as an excuse. I'm going to call her right now and give her a piece of my mind." I'd appreciate that, I said. But honestly, I think this is about more than just you. Patricia seems to have decided that my equipment should be community property, and she's not going to let it go. Mrs. Henderson shook her head. This neighborhood has gone downhill since she became HOA president. Everything is about control with her. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I thanked her and headed out to tackle my actual work. But the encounter had clarified something for me. This wasn't really about helping neighbors. This was Patricia flexing her power and trying to force me to comply with her vision of how the neighborhood should work. The fine started the next day. I received an official notice that I was being assessed a $100 per day fine, starting immediately, for violation of the emergency snow removal measure. I forwarded it to Robert, who called me back within an hour. "This is harassment," he said. "Clear cut. The emergency measure they're citing doesn't exist in your HOA bylaws, and they can't just make up rules and start fining people. But here's the problem. To fight it, you'll need to go through the HOA's internal dispute resolution process first, which could take months. And if that doesn't work, you'll have to sue. We're talking about a year or more of this dragging on. What if I just don't pay the fines? They can put a lien on your property. Eventually, they could even foreclose, though that's unlikely. But a lien would make it impossible for you to sell or refinance. So I'm trapped. Not trapped, but your options are limited. My advice: start looking at houses outside the HOA. I didn't want to hear it, but I knew he was right. That evening, after a 12-hour workday clearing snow, I sat down at my computer and started browsing real estate listings. The problem was, most of the decent neighborhoods in Erie were HOA controlled. The ones that weren't tended to be either very expensive or in areas where running my business would be difficult. Then, I found something interesting. A property about 20 miles outside Erie, in a rural area near Lake City. It was a 4-bedroom house on 3 acres, no HOA, with a detached garage big enough for all my equipment. The price was actually slightly less than what I figured I could get for my current house. The location would add some drive time to my commercial clients, but it wouldn't be unmanageable. I called the listing agent the next morning and set up a viewing for that weekend. Meanwhile, Patricia escalated things further. She sent out another neighborhood-wide email, this time calling me out by name. She wrote that I was refusing to be a team player and putting personal profit above community welfare. She encouraged other residents to express their disappointment with my behavior. The next few days were surreal. Some neighbors I'd barely spoken to in 8 years suddenly felt entitled to lecture me about community responsibility. Others left passive-aggressive notes on my truck. Someone even reported me to the city for a supposed zoning violation, claiming I was running an illegal business out of my residential property. The city inspector who came out was apologetic after I showed him my proper business licenses and permits, and admitted that he got frivolous complaints all the time from HOA disputes. But a few neighbors reached out to support me too. Mike Torres, the guy who'd sent the sarcastic email about sharing subs, stopped by one evening with a 6-pack of beer. "This is insane," he said as we sat in my garage. "Patricia is on a power trip. Half the neighborhood thinks she's gone too far." "It doesn't feel like half," I said. "The reasonable people are staying quiet because they don't want to be her next target. But we're watching and we're documenting everything. If you decide to fight this legally, you'll have witnesses." I appreciate that, but honestly, I'm thinking about just leaving. I found a property outside the HOA boundaries that might work. Mike was quiet for a moment. "I get it. Can't say I blame you, but if you do leave, what happens to the rest of us? Patricia's just going to find another target." "That's not my problem to solve," I said. I'm running a business. I can't spend all my time and energy fighting a petty HOA dictator. Fair enough, Mike said. But just so you know, there's a bunch of us who are sick of her. If you want to make a stand, we'll back you up. I thanked him, but I'd already made my decision. The viewing of the Lake City property that weekend confirmed it. The house was perfect for my needs. Plenty of space, great garage, no neighbors close enough to complain about me starting my truck at 4 in the morning. The owners were motivated sellers, and my real estate agent thought we could close quickly. I made an offer that night. It was accepted the next morning. Now came the tricky part. I needed to sell my current house, but I couldn't let Patricia or the HOA board know I was leaving until everything was finalized. If they found out, I had no doubt they'd try to sabotage the sale somehow, maybe by telling potential buyers about the fines or making the neighborhood look chaotic. My agent advised listing the house quietly, using minimal online presence and focusing on private showings. We listed it on a Thursday in mid-January. By Sunday, we had 3 offers, all above asking price. Apparently, houses in Pine Ridge Estates were in demand despite the insane HOA. I accepted the best offer and we went into contract, with a target closing date in early February, about 3 weeks away. The buyers were a couple moving from Cleveland for work. They seemed nice enough. I felt a little guilty not warning them about Patricia, but my agent said I was under no legal obligation to disclose HOA drama. During those 3 weeks, Patricia continued her campaign against me. The fines kept accumulating. She sent me a letter stating that I now owed the HOA over $2,000 in penalties. I didn't respond. I just kept working, kept my head down, and counted the days until closing. The night before I was scheduled to close on both properties, we got hit with the biggest snowstorm of the season. 22 inches in 18 hours, with drifts up to 4 feet in some places. It was the kind of storm that turns Erie into a winter wonderland and makes everyone's life miserable at the same time. I was up at 2 in the morning, earlier than usual because I knew it would take longer to get around. I'd already moved most of my belongings to the new house over the past week, so my current place was nearly empty. But I still had my equipment in the garage, the snowblower, the plow truck, and all my other tools. I cleared my driveway one last time, loaded the snowblower into my truck, and headed out. The roads were brutal. Even with 4-wheel drive and the weight of the plow, I had to take it slow. But I made it to my first commercial client, a medical office complex that needed to be clear before 6 in the morning. I was working on my 3rd pass through the parking lot when my phone rang. Patricia. I ignored it. She called again. I ignored it again. Then she started texting. Where are you? Need to talk ASAP. Emergency situation with snow removal. Call me immediately. This is urgent. Multiple residents need assistance. I finished the medical office parking lot and moved on to my next job, a restaurant that opened at 11. The texts kept coming. Patricia was getting increasingly agitated. Finally, around 7 in the morning, I took a break and called her back. Connor, finally, she said. I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm working, Patricia. What do you want? The neighborhood is buried. We need you to bring your plow truck and clear the main streets. The city hasn't gotten to us yet, and people can't get out. That's not my responsibility. Under the emergency measure, it absolutely is. You have equipment that can help the community, and you're required to use it. Patricia, I'm done with this conversation. I'm busy with my actual customers. If you don't get here within the hour, I'm calling the city and reporting that you're blocking emergency access. Blocking emergency access? What are you talking about? Your truck has been parked in front of your house for weeks, taking up street space. It's a hazard. My truck is in my driveway when I'm not using it. You're making things up now. Just get here, Connor. People are counting on you. I hung up on her. At this point, I was so close to being done with Pine Ridge Estates that I didn't care anymore. I'd close on my house tomorrow, sign over the keys, and never have to deal with Patricia again. But she wasn't done. Around noon, as I was finishing up a grocery store parking lot, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Connor Mitchell?" A man's voice, professional. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Officer Stevens with the Erie Police Department. I'm at your residence in Pine Ridge Estates. We received a report that you're operating a commercial vehicle in violation of residential zoning codes and creating a public hazard." My blood pressure spiked. "Officer, I have all the proper permits and licenses for my business. This is harassment from my HOA. Can you come back to your residence so we can sort this out?" I explained that I was in the middle of working and couldn't leave my current job site, but I'd be back within 2 hours. Officer Stevens said that was fine and gave me his direct number. When I finally made it back to Pine Ridge Estates, there were 2 police cars parked on my street. Patricia was standing on her front lawn, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Officer Stevens met me in my driveway. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry to bother you," he said quietly. "But we got a call from your HOA president claiming you were running an illegal business and that your commercial vehicle was creating a safety hazard. I've looked at your permits, and everything seems in order. This appears to be a civil dispute between you and your HOA." "That's exactly what it is," I said. "I'm in the process of moving out because the HOA president has been harassing me." I figured it was something like that. We get these calls from HOA disputes more often than you'd think. Unfortunately, even though the complaint is frivolous, we have to respond. But I want you to know that from our perspective, you haven't done anything wrong. You're licensed, your equipment is legal, and you're not creating any hazards. "I appreciate that, officer." He handed me a card. "If she continues to harass you after you move out, give us a call. This is starting to look like stalking behavior." Patricia must have seen the officer hand me his card and not cite me for anything, because her satisfied expression turned sour. She marched across the street as the police cars were leaving. "What's going on? Why aren't they doing anything?" "Because I haven't done anything wrong, Patricia, and you know it. You're in violation of multiple HOA bylaws. You owe us thousands in fines. You can't just ignore the board's authority." "Watch me," I said. "I'm done with this neighborhood and I'm done with you." "What's that supposed to mean? Figure it out." I went inside and slammed the door. I had some final packing to do, and I wanted to be ready for the closing tomorrow. The next morning, February 3rd, I arrived at the title company's office at 9 in the morning. The closing on my new house went smoothly. Took about an hour. The closing on my Pine Ridge Estates house was scheduled for 11. The buyers were already there when I arrived, signing their stacks of paperwork. "Everything looks good, Mr. Mitchell," the title agent said. "Just a few more signatures from you and we're done." I signed where indicated, initialed, dated. The whole process took maybe 20 minutes. Then it was done. I handed over the keys to the buyers, shook their hands, and wished them luck. "Quiet neighborhood," the husband said. "That's what sold us on it." I almost said something. Almost. But I held my tongue. They'd figure it out soon enough. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I was free. No more HOA, no more Patricia, no more nonsense. I climbed into my Plow truck, started the engine, and headed back to Pine Ridge Estates one last time to pick up the few remaining items from my garage. I pulled into my old driveway around 1 in the afternoon. Patricia must have been watching for me because she was outside in seconds. "Connor, we need to settle the outstanding fines before you leave." "I'm not paying your fake fines, Patricia. They're not fake. They're legitimate penalties assessed by the HOA board for violations of community bylaws." "Sue me," I said. "Oh wait, you can't because I don't live here anymore. I closed on this house 2 hours ago." Her face went pale. "You what?" I moved. "I'm out. As of today, I'm no longer a resident of Pine Ridge Estates and I'm no longer subject to your ridiculous HOA rules. You can't just leave. You have obligations. You owe us money. Take it up with the new owners. Not my problem anymore." I loaded the last few boxes from my garage into my truck. Patricia stood there watching, her expression cycling through shock, anger, and something that might have been panic. "What about snow removal?" she finally said. "What are we supposed to do when it snows?" "Same thing every other neighborhood does. Hire a service, call the city. Buy your own equipment, I don't care. But your truck, you have the Plow truck." "Yeah, and it's going with me. Did you think I'd leave it here? You're the only one in the neighborhood with a commercial Plow setup. How are we supposed to clear the streets when the city doesn't come?" I paused and looked at her. "Patricia, that is not my problem. You spent weeks telling me that I was selfish for not sharing my equipment. You tried to find me into submission. You called the police on me. You made my life hell. And now you're surprised that I'm leaving." "I was trying to build a better community." "No, you were trying to control people. There's a difference." I climbed into my truck and started the engine. Patricia was still standing there, looking lost. "You can't do this," she said. I just did. "Goodbye, Patricia." I drove away from Pine Ridge Estates for the last time. In my rearview mirror, I could see Patricia standing in the middle of the street, watching me go. The next few weeks were blissful. My new property was everything I'd hoped for. The commute to my eerie clients was a bit longer, but not unreasonably so, and I'd already started picking up new clients in the Lake City area. The house itself was spacious and comfortable, and the 3 acres gave me plenty of room to store equipment and even expand my business operations. Best of all, no HOA. I could park my truck wherever I wanted. I could start my equipment at 4 in the morning without worrying about complaints. I could live my life without someone constantly looking over my shoulder for violations. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About a month after I moved, I got a call from Mike Torres. "Connor, you need to hear this," he said, laughing. "The HOA is falling apart." "What happened?" "After you left, we got hit with 2 more big snowstorms. The city was slow to plow our streets both times, and the neighborhood was basically paralyzed for days. People couldn't get to work. Emergency vehicles couldn't get through. It was a disaster. And Patricia, she tried to organize volunteers with shovels to clear the main streets. It was pathetic. Took them 2 days to clear what you could have done in 2 hours with your truck. People started asking why we didn't have any snow removal plan, and Patricia admitted that she'd been counting on forcing you to do it for free. "You're kidding." "Nope." That's when people started demanding answers. Turns out the emergency measures Patricia kept citing, completely made up. She just invented them. And the fines she was charging you, also not authorized by the bylaws. She was basically running the HOA like her personal fiefdom. So what happened? A bunch of us filed a formal complaint with the HOA management company. There was an investigation. Long story short, Patricia and the other 2 board members were removed. We're having new elections next month. Good for you guys. I'm glad I don't have to deal with it anymore. Yeah, but here's the kicker. Patricia is threatening to sue you for the unpaid fines. I laughed. Let her try. I don't live there anymore. I'm not subject to the HOA, and the fines were bogus to begin with. That's what we told her, but you know Patricia, she doesn't give up easily. Mike was right. A week later, I received a certified letter from a law office in Erie, representing Patricia Danvers personally. The letter claimed that I had caused financial harm to the HOA by removing my snow removal services and demanded $15,000 in damages. I forwarded it to Robert Chen, who called me back laughing. "This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen all month," he said. "She has no case. You were never under contract to provide snow removal services. You were never compensated by the HOA. You lived up to all your actual obligations under the HOA bylaws. She's just throwing a tantrum. So I ignore it. I'll send a response telling them to pound sand, but yeah, basically ignore it. If she actually files suit, which I doubt, we'll deal with it then. But this is just harassment." Robert sent his response, and I didn't hear anything more about it. I figured that was truly the end of it. But then it got weird. About 2 weeks after receiving Patricia's lawsuit threat, I was working a residential job in Erie, clearing a driveway after a moderate snowfall. I just finished and was loading my equipment when a car pulled up. It was Patricia. "Connor, we need to talk," she said, getting out of her car. "We have nothing to talk about, Patricia. Leave me alone. Please just hear me out. 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stopped what I was doing. 5 minutes. "I made mistakes," she said. "I see that now. The HOA board was right to remove me. I got too focused on trying to control everything, and I lost sight of what was actually important. Okay, I'm asking you to come back. The new board is willing to void all the fines. We'll put everything behind us. The neighborhood needs someone with your skills and equipment." I stared at her. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious. We'll pay you. A retainer, like a contract. Fair market rate for snow removal services. You can set the terms. Patricia, I moved. I bought a house. I'm not coming back to Pine Ridge Estates. But we need you. Then you should have thought of that before you spent 2 months harassing me." I said I made mistakes. "Can't you forgive me?" "This isn't about forgiveness. This is about the fact that I have no interest in living in an HOA-controlled neighborhood ever again. You taught me that lesson very thoroughly." Her expression hardened. "So you're going to leave an entire neighborhood to suffer. The neighborhood will be fine. They can hire a snow removal company. There are dozens in Erie. Or residents can clear their own driveways like normal people. You're being petty. I'm being smart. Have a nice life, Patricia." I got in my truck and drove away. She didn't follow me, but I could see her in the mirror, standing there looking angry. That night, I got a series of text messages from unknown numbers. They were all from Pine Ridge Estates residents, some begging me to reconsider, some angry that I wouldn't help the neighborhood, some offering money. I blocked all the numbers. The harassment continued sporadically over the next few weeks. Random calls, texts, even someone showing up at my new house one Saturday morning. That one I actually reported to the police, who spoke to the person and warned them about trespassing. Robert advised me to send a cease and desist letter to Patricia and the HOA, which I did. That seemed to calm things down. Meanwhile, I was hearing through the grapevine that Pine Ridge Estates was struggling. Without my plow truck, they were dependent on the city's snow removal schedule, which could be slow. They'd hired a commercial snow removal company, but the company charged a fortune and often couldn't get to the neighborhood quickly, because they were servicing larger commercial clients first. Some residents were talking about selling and moving. Property values in the neighborhood were apparently declining because word had gotten out about the HOA drama. In March, I got a call from Mike Torres again. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "What now?" "Patricia is being investigated for embezzlement." "What?" "Yeah." After she was removed from the board, the new treasurer started going through the books. Turns out Patricia had been funneling HOA funds into her personal account, over $40,000 over the past 2 years. Holy crap! The HOA filed a police report. There's a criminal investigation. She might actually get charged. Good. She deserves it. But that's not all. Remember those fines she was charging you? She was pocketing that money too, or she would have been if you'd paid them. She created this whole fake fine system and was keeping the money for herself. I felt a surge of vindication. I'd known Patricia was on a power trip, but I hadn't realized she was actually stealing from the HOA. Is there anything I need to do? I asked. The police might want to talk to you since you were one of her targets, but probably not. They've got plenty of evidence already. A few weeks later, I saw a news article in the Erie Times-News. Patricia Danvers had been arrested and charged with multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud. The article detailed how she'd been stealing from the Pine Ridge Estates HOA for years, creating fake fines and expenses to justify the theft. The total amount was over $50,000. I forwarded the article to Robert Chen with a brief message. Glad I moved when I did. He replied, sometimes the trash takes itself out. The story didn't end there, though. Patricia's arrest created a ripple effect through Pine Ridge Estates. Several other former board members were investigated, though none were charged with crimes. The HOA management company was sued for failing to provide adequate oversight. The whole neighborhood became something of a cautionary tale in local HOA circles. I heard from Mike one more time, about 6 months after I'd moved. Just wanted to give you an update, he said. Patricia took a plea deal. She's getting 2 years in prison and has to pay full restitution plus penalties. Her husband divorced her. She's basically lost everything. I'm not going to say I feel bad for her. Nobody expects you to. But here's the thing. The neighborhood has changed. The new HOA board is actually reasonable. They've revised the bylaws to limit board power and create more transparency. We've got a proper snow removal contract now. People are starting to move back in. That's good. I'm happy for you guys. Have you thought about coming back? There are houses for sale. Mike, I'm happy where I am. No offense to you or the neighborhood, but I like not having an HOA. I like being able to run my business without someone looking over my shoulder. Fair enough. Can't say I blame you, but if you ever change your mind, you'd be welcome back. I appreciate that, but I'm good. And I was. My business was thriving. I'd expanded my client base in the Lake City area and was actually making more money than I had before. The longer commute to my Erie clients was worth it for the peace of mind of not dealing with HOA nonsense. I never heard from Patricia again. According to news reports, she served 18 months of her 2-year sentence and was released on probation. She'd moved away from Erie entirely, reportedly to Pittsburgh where she had family. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I just complied with Patricia's initial demand. If I'd cleared Mrs. Henderson's driveway that first morning, would things have been different? Would Patricia have left me alone? Probably not. People like Patricia always push for more control. If I'd given in once, she would have made more demands. The snowblower would have become community property in all but name. She would have expected me to clear the whole neighborhood whenever it snowed. And when I finally pushed back, she would have retaliated just like she did anyway. Moving was the right decision. Sometimes the only way to win against an unreasonable HOA is to leave. The story became something of a legend in Erie's snow removal community. Other contractors would ask me about it, and I'd tell them the whole tale. Most would shake their heads in disbelief, though a few had their own HOA horror stories. One contractor, An older guy named Bill, who'd been in the business for 30 years, told me. HOAs used to be about maintaining property values and organizing community improvements. Now they're just tiny dictatorships run by people with too much time on their hands. You did the right thing getting out. I agreed with him completely. As I write this, it's been over a year since I left Pine Ridge Estates. I'm sitting in my home office in Lake City, looking out at my 3 acres of property, with my plow truck parked right outside where I can see it. This winter has been particularly brutal, with record snowfall totals, and my business has never been better. I still drive past Pine Ridge Estates occasionally when I'm heading to Erie for jobs. The neighborhood looks the same from the outside, all those cookie-cutter houses lined up in neat rows. But I know the community inside has changed. They learned the hard way that giving too much power to an HOA board can lead to disaster. As for me, I learned my lesson too. Never again will I live somewhere with an HOA. The freedom to live on my own property, without someone constantly trying to control what I do, is worth more than any community amenities or property value considerations. My new neighbors in Lake City are great. They're actual neighbors in the traditional sense. We wave when we see each other, we help out if someone needs it, but we respect each other's property and independence. When it snows, I clear my own driveway, and sometimes I'll swing by and help out an elderly neighbor if I have time. But it's my choice, not an obligation enforced by fines and harassment. That's what community should be. Voluntary cooperation based on mutual respect, not forced compliance based on petty rules and power-hungry board members. The final chapter of the Patricia saga came almost exactly a year after I moved. I got a letter in the mail, forwarded from my old Pine Ridge address. It was from Patricia's attorney, notifying me that she was dropping all claims against me and formally apologizing for the harassment. Apparently, part of her probation agreement required her to make amends to the people she'd harmed. The letter was carefully worded, clearly written by a lawyer, but the message was clear. She acknowledged that she'd been wrong and I'd been right all along. I read the letter once, filed it away with my other HOA-related documents, and forgot about it. Some vindication is satisfying, but mostly I was just glad the whole ordeal was over. The real satisfaction came from my thriving business and peaceful life. Every morning when I start my truck at 4 o'clock to go clear snow, I'm grateful that I don't have to worry about someone complaining or threatening to fine me. Every time I park my plow truck in my driveway, I'm thankful there's no HOA board trying to tell me it's an eyesore. The story has a simple moral. Sometimes the best way to deal with an unreasonable HOA isn't to fight them, but to leave them behind. They can't control what they don't have jurisdiction over, and life is too short to waste on petty battles with power-hungry neighbors. I built a good life in Erie, but I built a better one in Lake City. And I did it all without an HOA looking over my shoulder, that snowblower that started the whole mess, still running perfectly. I use it almost every day in the winter. My plow truck is still going strong too, clearing driveways and parking lots across Erie County. The difference is, now I use them on my own terms, for my own business, without anyone trying to claim they have a right to my equipment. Pine Ridge Estates eventually stabilized. The new HOA board was reasonable. The embezzled money was repaid through insurance and Patricia's restitution, and life went on. Some residents moved away, new ones moved in, and the neighborhood continued existing like thousands of other HOA-controlled communities across America. But I wasn't part of it anymore, and that was perfectly fine with me. The experience taught me valuable lessons about property rights, community dynamics, and the importance of reading HOA bylaws before buying a house. I share these lessons with anyone who will listen, especially young people buying their first homes. Read the bylaws, I tell them. Attend an HOA meeting before you buy. Talk to the neighbors. Find out if the board is reasonable or if they're on a power trip. And if you have any doubts, walk away. There are always other houses. Some listen, some don't. The ones who don't sometimes end up calling me a year later with their own HOA horror stories. I sympathize but remind them that they were warned. As for my business, Mitchell's Lawn and Garden Services continues to grow. I hired 2 employees last spring to help with the increased workload. We handle commercial and residential properties across Erie County, and our reputation for reliable service and fair pricing keeps bringing in new clients. The snow removal side of the business is particularly strong. Turns out, when you run an honest operation and don't have an HOA trying to force you to work for free, you can build a pretty successful company. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if Patricia had approached me differently that first morning. If she'd said, "Hey Connor, Mrs. Henderson is struggling and could really use some help. Would you be willing to clear her driveway when you have time?" I probably would have said yes. I'm not a monster. I'm happy to help neighbors when I can, but that's not how Patricia operated. She demanded, she threatened, she tried to force compliance. And in the end, she lost everything while I gained a better life. The story of Karen from the HOA who demanded I share my snowblower became my story of liberation. It pushed me out of a situation I'd tolerated for too long and into a better living situation where I could thrive. Looking back, I should probably send Patricia a thank you card. Her harassment motivated me to make a change I'd been avoiding. Without her unreasonable demands, I might still be living in Pine Ridge Estates, dealing with HOA nonsense and feeling trapped. Instead, I'm here in Lake City, running a successful business, living on my own terms and enjoying the simple freedom of not having to answer to an HOA board. That's the real ending to this story. Not Patricia's arrest or her apology letter, but my contentment with the life I built after I left. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, and I'm living very well indeed. Every snowstorm reminds me of the battle that changed my life. Every time I fire up that snowblower or hook up the plow to my truck, I think about Patricia's face when I told her I'd moved and was taking my equipment with me. The neighborhood she tried so hard to control is doing fine without me. And I'm doing even better without them. That's the way it should be. Communities should enhance your life, not restrict it. Neighbors should cooperate voluntarily, not be forced into service. And HOA boards should serve their communities, not rule them like tiny kingdoms. Pine Ridge Estates learned these lessons the hard way. I learned them too, but I came out ahead. My advice to anyone dealing with an unreasonable HOA is simple. Document everything, know your rights, consult a lawyer if needed, and don't be afraid to walk away. Your peace of mind and freedom are worth more than any house or neighborhood. I walked away from Pine Ridge Estates, and I've never looked back with regret. Only relief and satisfaction that I made the right choice. The snowblower sits in my garage right now, ready for the next storm. The plow truck is parked outside, an extension of my business and my independence. They're mine, bought with my money, used for my purposes. No HOA can take that away from me anymore. And that, in the end, is what matters most.